when we talk about church, is important that we know or understand what church is. That the church that we are referring to is a people and not a building. Is important because there are many things that comes to us, in life as we travel through life. Many things are pushed out, and the idea of church being a building has become so strong today that people think that until they get to where there is a building, they won't find God. And then when they leave that place, they can live anyhow until they return to that building. But when we talk about church, we are not talking about physical building. We are talking about a people, a community of people who have accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. This is very important. A community of people living in the world, but only by the principles of Jesus Christ. This is the church that we are talking about. So that when we begin to talk about growth, you understand where we are going. So a structural building serves as a meeting point for fellowship and training for the people of God. And that is what it has been. Even when Jesus Christ went to the synagogue, he went there to train the people to preach. That was not the focus. It was just a platform that he was using to train people. Of course, you know that he has used both, stayed in the boat to also train people. And so that tells you that the church, the issue of church cannot be reduced to, a place or a particular structure. So the moment we have this understanding, it will help us because it will enable the church to be the church in truth and in all ways. That the church is a people and they are a mobile community. They congregate once, in a while, receive training, continue their life, like Pastor Joel emphasized when he was talking. So the divide between Monday to Friday and Sunday, he was trying to explain that to us. The real church happens from Monday to Monday. The real church of Jesus Christ happens, every day from Monday to Monday. So it's not a Wednesday, it's not a Sunday thing. And then when we talk about growth, we are talking about a gradual and consistent increase or expansion over time. Church growth has to do with spiritual growth, has to do with numerical growth, has to do with incarnational growth in the sense that the influence that the church or the people of God, brings into the context in which they live and serve God every day. That in that context, they are manifesting the habits of Christ. They are doing the will of God, like God's prayer said, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That these are the people who are actually, doing the will of God, and through this, they are influencing the environment, positively. They are not living disconnectedly from the environment. They exist, and the environment feels, their presence. Just like when Jesus Christ incarnated, the environment felt his presence, and so. These are the dimensions of growth that we are talking about, but the foundation for this growth is the spiritual growth, where people come into Christ, they are trained and they grow, they bear the fruit of the Spirit, and then they go to bring in others. And then as the number grows, and then in that environment where they work, where they do market and the rest of those things, they apply the principles of Christ in what they are doing. And then the impact, is felt in that environment. So in the 21st century, sustainable church growth in the 21st century, of course, we need to understand that where we are today, cities are global, pluralistic in the sense that many people from different faiths are gathered in our cities. And then even in the villages, life and things are fast changing. And then because of where we are, people trust lifestyle witnesses more than pulpit messages. And that is why today, if you follow what is going on in the social media, beliefs are questioned and challenged. Preachings are questioned and challenged. If you see, the issues raised about tithe and tithing, the problem wouldn't have been, problem wouldn't have arisen. But it's because of the lifestyle of those who are emphasizing this issue of tithe and how they are using the money. And that is why the system is challenging them, challenging their preaching, challenging the prosperity gospel. So the 21st century is the time where people don't just accept what you are preaching. You just come and say, Jesus is Lord. You have to go beyond Jesus is Lord, to a point where they will be able to relate with what you are saying and then appreciate it. So you don't just stand up now and say something and expect the people to swallow it. Many, many people are challenging, many are raising questions about the things that we are preaching and the life that we are living as people of God. So that is the picture of the 21st century. It's not as you just come and say, praise the Lord, everybody will clap, and that is changing, and it's changing, very fast. So that is the context in which we are called to build a church that, is sustainable. How then do we grow a church? Pastor Joel had mentioned discipleship in passing. And this is where I want to stay because it's important. We cannot grow a healthy church. A healthy church is a sustainable church because it keeps growing, it's reproducing itself, from time to time, adapting and adjusting to the challenges of the environment. Now, we can't build a sustainable church without discipleship. And this discipleship is something that has to be intentional and consistent. That is, evangelism is not supposed to be a casual thing. Evangelism is what I call recruitment, because that is what happens. Big organizations, when they want to get people into their system, they advertise and people apply, and then they do selection. Those who pass move to the next level of training, and then the last point is deployment, where they assign new responsibilities. So in the kingdom, we have to evangelize, we have to preach the gospel. And this is where many people have stayed at this level. Many denominations have stayed here. Many mission agencies have stayed here, preaching the gospel and then walking away. Many people have given their life to Christ, but they don't know where to go from there. So the first point about discipleship is that evangelism has to be intentional. It has to be consistent. It's not just a one-off thing. It's something that have to happen regularly. And then there have to be intentional and consistent training. This training is specifically for people who have given their life to Christ. It's not for everybody. That is why you see the preachings we do in church, seems not to be having impact, because inside the church, the gathering is mixed, believers and unbelievers, and they respond to messages differently. Even in our own churches, an unbeliever can come to you after service and say, you preach a wonderful sermon, and can give you 10,000, 20,000, depending on how he felt, emotionally about it. But he will not have the power to live out that message. That is where the difference is. He can be excited, but to practice it will be different. But for the believer, the response will be different. And then when you go deeper, like Jesus Christ talked about carrying your cross every day, it's not everybody who goes to church that can carry his cross and follow Jesus Christ. It's not everybody. And there are many things the flesh will not allow ordinary church member, to do. And that is why you see the challenge we're having in our system, in our churches, that too many people are governed by the flesh, even though they claim that, they are Christians. But discipleship intentionally points people to Christ, and when they respond, they are trained on the kingdom life, the kingdom principles. And then they are also encouraged. That is the deployment. They are also encouraged. That is what he was talking about. Encouraged, to live out this life, because this is where the difference lies. It's not just hearing. Jesus Christ said it's not just hearing. Those who keep my words, they are truly my disciples. John 8:31. It's not just hearing. What separates a disciple, from every other person is obedience to the word of God, is the practice of the word of God every day, not just hearing. And of course, you know that many people are hearing and nothing is happening. So discipleship, where it is practiced, produces laborers and not just consumers. Discipleship produces obedient laborers, produces selfless laborers, and produces faithful laborers and joyful laborers. Now, these are the qualities of people that can, create a sustainable church, that they stay obedient to Jesus Christ no matter what happens. If you read the scriptures that are there, you are going to see how the disciples resisted every pressure for them to disobey God on the matter of making disciples. The system came heavily on them, challenged them, pressured them, but they resisted and said, we can never obey you. We only have to obey God. And they persisted. And then you also see that they were selfless. They didn't hold back anything. When you read that passage, you see where the Bible says that Paul didn't hold back anything. Selfless laborers. These are the ones that can stay, in the field and forget about everything. It will not allow adverse circumstances, to hinder them and become reasons why they will not labor. So they keep giving without reservation, without looking back. They will not hold back anything that will make the gospel to advance. So these people come as a result of, discipleship. And faithful laborers, those who don't do work who don't see success in this work as in terms who don't read material things as progress, don't use physical signs, to measure their progress. They stay in their workplace, they are faithful. The signs, the evidence may be slow in coming, but they stay there and are faithful to God. And then these ones are joyful laborers because even though they may not have money, but the circumstances will not dampen their spirit and will not discourage them. They know that the joy of the Lord is their strength. They keep moving because they are not limited by the circumstances they find themselves. And of course, the circumstances in which we are called, to raise a church, to grow a church, will not always favor us. Will not. The church has to keep advancing. When you hear that in the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom was advancing forcefully. That is what it is. It doesn't mean that John the Baptist himself was violent, but for the kingdom to advance, people needed to press hard, to keep going against the wind, against the forces of darkness. They needed to keep going. So joyful laborers, they keep advancing, they keep going, not allowing anything to dampen their spirit, as against, the lamentation, the complaints that we hear, around us. Every day, and you turn, you hear, lamentation, you hear complaint, you hear all kinds of things, around. But what happens is that when people are properly decided, this is what will happen. Sustainable has to do with what is renewable. It keeps going and it endures. Not just something that will fizzle out, just like what is happening in the Western world, that churches are becoming, empty, being turned to pubs, to clubs, to Islamic centers, and the rest of those things. We need to ask, what happened? How did we get to this point? How did we get to a point that a church, will fizzle out when they still have money in their bank account, but they don't have members, they don't have anybody standing. The last person is willing to sign out the church, hand over the building, and walk away. How do we get to that point? Because it was not reproducing. The church was not reproducing itself. And that is why over time, it fizzles out. And so that is why this matter becomes important to us, because we have a group of people, who are working with us in Presbyterian Church and in other places. And we call them tent makers, as is shown in the Bible, that is biblical, because Paul himself was a tent maker. And like what Brother Joel said, a tent maker, is a Christian earning a living professionally or vocationally while intentionally advancing the gospel and building the church in their context. Now, the emphasis here is Christian. The emphasis here is Christian. A tent maker who is not a Christian will not be able to grow the church in ways that are sustainable. One, you don't know Christ, and there is no way you will be obedient to Christ. It's not about wearing collar, it's not about going to seminary, because we have within our system, I have seen it, there are a lot of tent makers who are traditional Presbyterians, born Presbyterians, who have not known Jesus Christ personally. They don't have a testimony of how they met Jesus Christ. If you ask them, how did you become a Christian? They will tell you that I'm a born Presbyterian, I was born into a Christian family. That is their strongest testimony. You will not hear at this point, this is where Christ came into my heart, or I met Christ. And then you will not hear stories of how they are growing in their faith, intentionally following Christ, daily. Now, this kind of people, even though they are wearing collar, will not be able to get involved in real-time church planting, church growth, because the inspiration is not the passion, the strength, to do it is not there. So the emphasis is on being a Christian, not just a tent maker, wearing collar, being called a reverend. That is not the matter. The matter is that you are in Christ and Christ is in you. And then you are working, either as a professional or you are doing a vocational job, and you understand, like Brother Joel was saying, that if you are an engineer and you are working with Ministry of Works, that is your place of assignment. That is your mission field. Your mission field is not your local congregation. And that is why I said what I said. Because if tent makers are in their places of assignment, there is no pastor in the local church that will find them and come and tell them to come and be in electrical department or mechanical department or something like that. Even though we have those departments in the church, but it will be a side thing. It's not that it will be a primary thing for a tent maker. If the tent makers understand that you are in a medical profession, that is your mission field. You have a supermarket, which you're running. That supermarket provides the means for you to pay your bills and live your life, but it becomes also your mission field, a platform where you raise disciples for Christ, if you understand what it means to be a tent-making Christian. That this thing is done intentionally, not just, growing the church is not a casual thing. It's not something that happened accidentally. Somebody has to pay the price. Somebody has to, look for souls, to raise and to grow. So wherever you find yourself, whether you are passing tires, whether you are selling tomatoes, whether you are a taxi driver, you are a bus driver, that is your place of assignment. Your place of assignment is not in the local church where you come and sit down every Sunday, wear collar, bless offering, read first Bible lesson, and those kind of things. That is not your place of assignment. Yes, you must have a base, but that is not your place of assignment. Not the kind of things we are seeing in a church where we have tent makers who are struggling, for salary, in some of our congregations. That is becoming, a major issue, that they gather and what they are talking about is that the church is not paying us, but you're supposed to be gainfully employed. You're supposed to be earning salary. Like our brother said, if the church decides to support you, fine. It's not a sin, they will support you. But when you now come with an entitled mentality and insist, which you see Paul at no point in his whole life and ministry insisted on any support, but gave room when the support came. He took it and continued his work. But we see that emphasis have shifted, to within our system, to issue of salary, looking for moderators, clerks of presbyteries, and the rest of those things, instead of focusing on the thing that we were actually supposed to do, because that place of assignment, offers a huge opportunity. For instance, if you are in a military personnel, you are in a better position to communicate Christ to them than somebody who is outside the profession, because you know the language of that profession. There are elements, there are structures, or there are things within that profession that you can use to communicate Christ. And more so, if a fellow soldier sees you, a fellow soldier, giving your life to Christ, living like Christ, it's easy for you to convince that person to follow Christ, that for an outsider to come. The same thing happens if you are a pilot, if you are whatever profession you find yourself, because there are some professions that you have that people feel on top of the world, feel that they become arrogant because of, the professions that they have. Sometimes you see medical doctors, because of what they have read, they don't want to listen to anything. Everything is about what we have seen and read. But a medical doctor who is a Christian, actively following Christ, is in the best position, to witness to others, to disciple them and bring them, to Christ. The tent maker, is supposed to be enabled, to function in an environment that is not structured like the local church, because this tendency to return back, to a place that is structured, there is microphone, there is this, is not what it was meant to be. Look at Paul. He wasn't functioning within structured systems. He went out, the systems, outside. That is where he was, raising disciples. So tent makers are Christians who are intentionally advancing the gospel in their places of work. That is their primary place of assignment. That is their primary place. And if you raise disciples, these disciples can now, come back to join the local congregation and grow the local congregation. But the truth is that it's even easier to grow the church outside in an unstructured environment than within the local church. Because I've seen it happen many times that colleagues, one colleague becomes a Christian, follows you, he brings another one like that. By the time you know what is happening, the department, this thing has changed, the color has changed, the atmosphere has changed, because people have come, to know Christ. And they apply the principles of Christ in the place where they are working, and you see that the environment, is different. So the tent maker, in truth, must be a Christian. A Christian must be a Christian. That is the only way he will be, functional and useful to the kingdom. Because if he doesn't have the mind of Christ, he will never pursue the interests of Christ. He will still be driven by the carnal interests that we see around us. He will still be fighting with the what do you call it, resident pastor or minister in charge. He will still be struggling with. I hear them complain that I've been in this church, they don't give me pulpit, this and that. Meanwhile, even if you have to stay in a local church, the Sunday school department is a big department. The Bible study is a big department. Even school of discipleship that we don't even have people, volunteering and running, is a big department that every year, like we have started January, they did covenant renewal. They brought speakers. Some of the speakers invited people to give their life to Christ. Who did the follow-up? Nobody. And yet there is a tent maker in the place who is waiting for the pastor to include him in roster. And these are harvests that are lying down wasting. We are moving towards June. We are going to do mid-year showers all over the place. Preachers will be brought, put in a hotel, given money, on honorarium. The souls that are won, nobody will look after them. And so if the tent maker even decides to stay, this is a huge opportunity that they can use instead of, struggling with these people. So the role of tent makers in growing a sustainable church. And I've told you that a sustainable church is a church that endures, that lasts. And it's not a church that, after a while it fizzles out and the church doors are closed. They are real partners that can help us, because when growth peaks within the local congregation, the tent maker in his place of assignment can be raising disciples that can later, join the local congregation. So first of all, the tent makers must understand and appreciate who they are. That they are field workers, not resident ministers. Tent makers cannot and are not resident ministers. They are field workers, and they must understand that and appreciate that. They must also understand and appreciate their places of assignment. That their place of assignment is not the pulpit in the church. They have a bigger, better pulpit where they are, their workplace. They must appreciate that space. If not, they will keep, coming back, and then our churches may be dwindling. Meanwhile, we have a workforce. And then they must understand and embrace the Jesus way of growing the church, which is making disciples. They must employ and apply their graces, which the gifts, the skills, the resources, in their places of assignment. You don't need, to lean so much on the church. The gifts that you have, use them where you are. All the spiritual gifts, apply them where you are. The skills that you have acquired, apply them where you are. The resources, financial, resources, apply them where you are. And then they also need to be flexible and sensitive in the sense that if you keep, putting God in a box, you will not be able to function. If you keep saying when it's this time, I will do this. God can bring somebody to you at any point in time. In the course of your work, God can bring somebody to you. So there must be sensitivity. The Holy Spirit speaks, and there must be flexibility in the sense that you can adjust, and respond to the Holy Spirit. But that does not mean that you're going to be responsible in your workplace. That is not what we are saying. Sensitivity in the sense that every day God leads us into people. Leads us to people that their hearts, God has prepared. But because we are not intentional about making disciples, we are still looking back as going back to church on Sunday to go and sit down. We miss a lot of opportunities. And then we partner with the local congregations, not because we want them, to pay our bills, but because we want that if we raise people outside, they can come there and continue their training, in matters of faith. And then they must persevere in the application of the graces in the place of assignment. What we mean here is that oftentimes the challenges can make you become discouraged. It can make you become weary. Like within our system where you don't have the cooperation of the pastors, cooperation of the session, you can become disheartened. But if you understand what the assignment is, the real assignment is, and where the place of work is, then you will persevere, and you must persevere no matter what happens. So this is what the matter is, that we are tent makers, we are field missionaries, we are field workers, we are not restricted, to a particular location. We're empowered if we are Christians, to minister in wherever God, even if we are forest guards, that is our place of assignment. We raise disciples. So because the church is not a building, they are human beings, people who have given their life to Christ. So if we keep bringing people into the kingdom, nurturing them, there is no how the church will be doing it. But we will keep having the church expanding. As one person comes, he will bring another person, and we keep going like that, and then the influence will be spreading. I would like to stop here. Thank you. And we can take questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. The deputy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Please, at this point, you want to call on those that want to ask questions. Raise your hand, please. For those that came in, please get to the chat box, register your name, your parish, your presbytery, and your synod, please. It's very important. It's very important because very important. So please raise your hand if you want to ask question, please. Raise your hand for identification.
Chidiebere, I saw a hand, Chidiebere also.
Yeah, there are two hands.
Chidiebere
and then
okay, so let them ask their question.
Okay, Prof, can we start with you? Prof, let's start with you, please.
Yeah, I want to thank the Deputy Clerk of the General Assembly for a very wonderful presentation. My question is this. He has made a point very clear of the area of our primary assignment. For example, I am in the University of Calabar. I apply my trade here. The College of Medicine, whenever they have any commendation service or solemn assembly, they will come for me. ASUN, which is our union, whenever they have services, they will come for me. I am doing my work primarily here. I evangelize. I want to ask this question. Is it wrong for us as tent makers to support and plant a church?
No.
While I have to ask this question is this. My home parish, far away from Calabar, we were trying after about 120 years. We didn't have a branch of the main parish. So I tried with a few brethren who are born again to start something. Fight and opposition. At a point in time, when we eventually started, we were brought up as a congregation. From there, we took off. I had to be paying salaries of the minister there, buy choir robes until that parish is established. Is it wrong for it? Am I doing the work of a tent-making minister or not in that respect?
Yes, you are doing the work of a tent-making minister. While you are ministering in Unical, yes, you can plant church anywhere in the world. That is why you are working, you are earning a living. I said it, you can apply your resources anywhere you are led, as long as people are coming to know Christ. Opportunity is given, a platform is given to them, to know Christ and to grow in Christ. That is the primary assignment for people to come to Christ. So whether you are planting a church outside Unical or in America, as long as the goal is to make disciples for Christ, you're okay. That is where we are going.
Yeah, then I have a second question, because this is where we need to strike a balance. By our church policy, we were ordained as ministers of word and sacraments. And then on a Sunday, since we cannot stay in the university, of course, we have Chapel of Redemption, but I go to Garden Parish. Then on a Sunday service, maybe it's a day for communion, they ask you to come and assist. Is it a crime to assist?
No, sir. No, sir. It's not a crime.
Okay, now there was this peculiar problem. Around December, the minister in charge traveled. The associate minister traveled. They abandoned the place. No pastor on ground, 1 or 2 Sundays. Now in Garden. Under that circumstance, what is it a crime for the tent-making minister to step in? Because
no,
that is not his area of primary assignment.
Step in and do what?
No, sir.
Official
you can always provide backup services. The point I'm making is that know your primary place of assignment. But if opportunities come, because what we are witnessing is that many of the tent makers are focusing on the local church, struggling for pulpit in the local church when they have a bigger pulpit outside. Like you have just mentioned, you have supported the creation of a parish in your hometown. That is commendable. But there are people who will still sit in Calabar, sit in Garden, and be struggling with the minister in Garden. Meanwhile, there are things to do, outside. So if the parish minister, creates opportunity for you, encourages you to participate, fine. My emphasis is that we don't sit down and waste our time, talent, and resources struggling when there are bigger opportunities, outside.
I don't know.
Do you understand me, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
I
think there will always be spaces for you to fill up, where there is understanding.
Okay. I think it will be appropriate all these lectures and your teachings to be put in a booklet form to assist upcoming tent-making ministers, because there are actually many going in. Some go in because they want to wear the collar.
Yes.
This document and even the presentation of the first speaker, I know there is a small fragment in our P&P, a certain section. What you have put out should be re-emphasized, because we need to know, sir. Thank you so much.
It's all right.
Thank you.
Chidiebere, unmute yourself.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and then thank you so much, the Deputy Clerk, for the wonderful submission. I must say, the minutes and hours spent has been very, very impactful. You have really exposed a lot of issues that ordinarily many of us may not have easily come in terms with. And then, while walking around, I've had opportunity of working with different ministers from Abakaliki Azioku Parish down to Akwa Ibom and a parish and down to Lagos, where I am currently. And then in all this, I've been able to work with a lot of ministers. And one of the things I found out from ministers cutting across different tribes and different languages is that every minister will always give platform to those who are willing and available to assist in the church growth. Like I said, I've worked in many of all these localities. Now, on 17th of last month, when we went for evaluation, I was hearing a lot of persons having some complaints, which personally I've never had across all the ministers I've ever worked with. In fact, in my own parish, there is Okoba Parish in this Lagos under Reverend Hosanna. There is hardly a month I don't have good platform to minister, both in the church and then special programs of the church and all that. Now, I believe that if we can do more of all this training to reorient the tent makers on the need to apply everything within them in growing the church, this work will become more of, or this sector will become more of a blessing than becoming more of a burden. Like I said, personally, I've not even had an issue where the session or thereabout is trying to say, oh, tent maker, don't do this, or don't do. In fact, in Azioku Parish of Abakaliki, I was the one that started first service. And both the session and the minister say, okay, yes, since you brought this good innovation, okay, let's start it to keep the youth. Now, I want to ask in this kingdom expansion that we are talking about, which I'm also begging, if we can do this training with the deputy clerk, if it is quarterly, because these few hours have been very, very impactful and important to me. If there is a way we can do this more of like a quarterly thing, one, and then is there a way tent makers can partner with the lay development in this aspect of church planting, in this aspect of growing the church, so that we'll completely go a bit away from focusing on entitlement mentality that many of us may be having, to focusing more on the mission aspect, because I believe there is still so much to be done. And if at the end of every year the church ordain or license maybe like 50 tent makers, and then the statistics either in the local congregation, the outstation, or in the parish as a whole is not growing. I believe that those number that the church is supplying as new tent makers, either by licensing or ordination, is not really adding value. Are there way we can cut across from focusing on opportunities in the pulpit to working with the laity who are also not focusing on maybe the benefits or opportunity coming from the pulpit, so that there can be a body that strategically look into the tent making ministry and all that? That's one. And then secondly, are there also way to evaluate and reevaluate tent makers post ordination, so that they don't just we don't just ordain tent makers and every one of us sit idle, wear collar, wear castle, come to church, balance at the end, you carry Bible and walk like a big man you are, and then go home? Is there a way to evaluate and reevaluate tent makers post ordination to ascertain whether the tent makers are really efficient or and effective in the ministry that they are vowed to contribute effectively?
It's okay.
So
All
those
right,
are
thank
just
you.
my two questions. Thank you, sir.
Of my room now. Don't see me with anything that is in my room.
Please, Prof, bring your hand down so that we know the hands. The first question is that we have started something and we must commend the Board of Missions for it, and we intend to build on it. The second question is that the Board of Missions themselves, I think one of the meetings, I've seen it on their platform, where they are supposed to bring a memo to GAC on how to evaluate tent makers. And I think that what is needed now, or we are waiting for, is the approval from GAC, because it's important for us to evaluate tent makers. If there's a template, I have a template that we can use to evaluate them. So the moment GAC gives that approval, I think we'll continue from there. But we have started something and we will build on it. See how to bring the different platforms together and keep creating awareness, because this awareness, is very important. That it will help us not just to have people sitting, idling away when there are opportunities everywhere. So thank you, sir, for your input. God is helping us. We are doing something small. It will grow by the grace of God as we persevere. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Anicho Ijoma, please, is the next person.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, the Deputy Clerk. Anicho Ijoma is my name. I seem to disagree that most tent makers don't really know exactly their place of primary assignment. I remember, I think about 12 years ago, when I came for interview, I was told very clearly that my assignment is my place of work. And because tent making ministry gives you opportunity to meet a lot of people, other professionals from other walks of life. You don't really have any business in the local church. But though in my own case, I am a Bible study teacher in my local church, I don't even bother whether I am in the roster, but mine is to utilize the opportunity I have in my workplace to build a church. Just like the Deputy Clerk rightly pointed out, the church is not a building. The church is a congregation of people. So most times where I go to make presentations, I also utilize that opportunity. I make friends. And when you have opportunities, you have programs in the church, you can invite those your friends. They can come in, make donations, support your programs in your local church. Through that way, you're growing the church. So most times when I hear that a tent maker is struggling for a pulpit for what? When you have a larger and bigger pulpit out there. That's number one. Then number two, I don't know. It's not really
let's deal with the number one.
okay. So.
I don't know the basis of your disagreement, but the point is that within our church, most state makers, if they know the assignment and their place of assignment, if they know, then the small tensions that we see around us will not be happening. The complaints, the murmuring, will not be happening. Like you said you were told. There are others too who may have been told, but do they remember or did they take it serious? Because if they took it serious, they would not go back, to struggle for space. So you cannot totally say that you disagree. If you have understanding, you can speak for yourself. But at the level at which I'm operating now, I have heard a lot of things. Not as real life issues that comes to us, every day. And we try to settle the matters. And it's born out of the fact that people don't know, one, who they are. They don't know where they are supposed to work. And that is why, they are struggling where they are. So that is the truth.
Maybe adding a little to that also. When he said he disagrees, I also felt somehow, why is he disagreeing with such a fact? What the DC has said explicitly to us is, number one, you are a pastor. You are a pastor with a collar, the same like the person in the parish. But the difference is, you are either in your business place, in your shop, in your institution, in your office, while the other person's main focus is the parish. So each of us has a place of primary assignment. That's what the PC tried to get us to know.
Yes,
and the difference between these primary assignments is, if I am in the parish, I am the one who is in charge of that area. I can still invite you as a tent maker and give you responsibilities, and we are working together for the same good, the purpose of growing the church. You are also there as a member of the presbytery. The presbytery can also assign you some duties to carry out. You are in your office. Everything around the office there, the people know you closer onto them. You don't depend on me to give you an assignment in your office. Instead, you could even arrange something in your office and be the one inviting me to give me an assignment in your office. So that becomes your own primary area of functioning. So in my own area, I can invite you. In your own area, you can invite me. But each person has a place that he or she has that full authority to control, to manage, to direct affairs. While primarily, we are all pastors. So you can do anything here, you can do anything there, but I cannot come to your university environment and function in that place unless I am invited. So that's the difference. Whereas you are there, you can take up one thing or the other. They see you around. You're wearing the collar representing the church's ambassador in that place, and you are doing the work. The people romance with you and so on. You are carrying the church's flag or image around and doing whatever good thing. Some people will begin to look for that church, admire that church because of your character. So you're doing your work out there, and they're looking for you. Anything happening around that area is where your work is, where the field is. You didn't go for the collar to come and manage in the church. But that doesn't mean that in the church you cannot do, or you just be idle, isolated, because you are not a full-time minister. We are all pastors. We work anywhere opportunity presents themselves, but somebody has an area that he has a more the freedom to operate than the other person. And that is just how we work together. So definitely there are many people who are in the tent making ministry, and they want even to be posted from one station to the other in the parish. They wanted to want to be here and be doing that and be doing that, whereas the big field is there for them at the station, was supported by you should even be the one dragging me. It's like, how will I put it, the districts in the church, in the parish. The elders district, the elder has all the whole district to do whatever and can drag the minister in charge. Please, I'm having this in my district. Come and do this, come and do this. And if you are serious about your work at the district, you can even open a church at the district. You can do this and do that. You won't even bother the many things, being involved in some things in the main the church's setting or the pulpit in the church, because you have your own in your small church as the head of the district. So that is just what we're trying to say or talk about. And there is an area to work. So just concentrate in that area and offer whatever assistance. Professor Umbe goes to the village. For some years now, every December, I go for crusade in my village, or arranged by a few of us. So a tent maker can do that, full-time minister can do that. That is an area you have the freedom to command whatever and direct whatever. So we just all that is all we want, that team ministry, working together. As a tent maker, understand yourself. As a full-time minister, understand yourself. And wherever there are openings, use one another so that for the good of the church. So we just keep progressing. Thank you.
Right, the second question, Anicho.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I think maybe my use of words were wrong, because why I said I was disagreeing wasn't that I was not really agreeing with your own position. But what I was saying was, during our interview, because I attended the session interview, the Presbytery Education interview, Education Committee interview at the Synod level. I even came to GA in Aba. It was mentioned very clearly. So I used to be confused when I hear that there are tent makers that are struggling for pulpit and all that and all that. So having said that and concluded that, another area I want to raise, thank God I have this privilege, is that some of our ministers in some parishes does not really understand what the tent making ministry is all about. Yes, I have to be honest with that, because I have been privileged myself to work under so many ministers that really understand what tent making ministry is all about. Even the current minister in charge of my parish, he calls me, please, Reverend, are you available? Is there a way you can come in on this program, on that, that's the right thing. But I know a minister that keeps complaining about a tent maker, that he doesn't attend this, he doesn't do this, he doesn't attend that, and all that. So we really need to incorporate this training, make it general, not really for tent makers only, for the entire ministers, so that everyone will really know that, oh, this man has his own specific assignments. If I want to ask him to do something in the parish, I will also find out whether he is available. That's the area I'm just emphasizing.
Okay.
Anicho, if I tell you now that I disagree with you, you know, that is what I was saying. There are two sides to this story. There are many tent makers who don't understand who they are and what they are supposed to do. And there are also many ministers who don't understand what the tent makers are
and how to relate with them.
So this training, this awareness have started, because we are still going to build on it. Somebody have said it already. We will also create a platform where ministers, will be reminded. And then we come back again and sit down together and talk about real partnership, how we can work together, like the chairman board of mission has mentioned, how we can work together So it's an ongoing thing. Like I said, the good thing is that we have started creating the awareness. So we will build on, on that. Thank you very much. God bless you. Asemota.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you very much, PC, DC. I'm so grateful to be part of this evening's session. I want to thank the organizers of it, particularly today. Let me start with first. The DC said something about the tent maker being a feed worker. Sir, thank you very much for a feed worker.
Okay.
A feed worker. Sir, I want to say thank you very much for emphasizing that, for bringing that to the light of everyone, particularly those of us who do not know. And I also want to thank Reverend Anecho, who said some ministers do not know the role and the duties of tent makers. Or if I have to put it this way, some do not want to accept the ministry of the tent makers. Because there are some people who specifically, some tent makers who specifically had their call before going to the ministry. They knew their call, they knew their assignment, they knew their vision, and they are already building on it before they even went on to the ministry to be trained. But a situation whereby when the person now resumes fully, having been maybe perhaps licensed and ordained, the minister in charge does not identify that ministry, does not agree with that person's ministry. Instead of promoting that ministry for the growth of that church, he will relegate the ministry of that tent maker to the background. Even when the ministry of that tent maker has already been identified before he resumed in that parish. When he comes, he no longer sees the need for that ministry to be identified. Say, for instance, I operate a drama ministry. A drama ministry is what I know my call is. A feed worker specifically. Reverend Nietzsche says something that once they no longer see you, they think you are irrelevant. You are not contributing to the growth of that parish or that congregation. But if a minister understands that he's building on the same assignment for the growth of that ministry, of that congregation, then he will encourage the presentation or the ministries of that tent maker for the growth of that parish or congregation. Because particularly if the parish has several congregations, several outreaches, the tent maker need to work around those other outreaches and mission stations and congregations to be able to build well and bring the parish work to a limelight. So, sir, I would want to appeal that the ministers, particularly the ministers in charge, should be given some orientation alongside with the tent makers, so that they will be able to work together as a team in the building and the growth of a parish or a church. Sir, I will appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyway,
this is before you conclude. Yes, there are few pastors who are threatened by the presence of others, and they want to protect that image of theirs, whether some is inferiority complex or whatever. They are threatened by others and want to protect it by just keeping them at arm's length and not wanting to use them in one way or the other. But these are some of the typical examples we're talking about competition in the parish. You are gainfully employed somewhere, before you came looking for the collar. Certainly, you didn't come looking for the collar to come and be stationed in the parish. That is just what we're saying. You should know that there is somebody who is in charge of the parish. Or if you are having such special ministries in the parish, then work on your relationship with whoever that is in charge of the parish. It may just be a matter of failed relationship. I will wonder to, sometimes I even forget that Professor Joel Effiong is a tent maker. By calling on him without trying to find out if he has that the space to do one thing or the other. All his relationship, not just being capable, but capable and available, and the relationship is just wonderful. So you want to always have the person around to do one thing or the other, and so on. In the parish, not just outside the parish, not at his work, the environment, the work area, and so on. So when things are like this, I will advise build on your relationship. It helps a lot. Jeremiah, as a servant, had a challenge, and just wrinkling his face a little, the master recognized it and asked him, "What do you want?" And he opened his mouth, as he said, he prayed. Whether he prayed for 1 second or 2 seconds, every request he made, the master responded to it, sitting with even the queen right by him. The queen even asked her, "How long is this your absence you are looking for? How long is it going to take?" But he didn't still object to his request. They granted it totally to him and gave him all the assistance. Relationship. So let's try to relate well with one another. Know that if you want to claim right on this and the other one claiming right on this, it will work as if we are not doing this, working for the same purpose or for the same person. So let's build on our relationship as well.
Now, the point is that we must not miss the point why we are here. Today, we are talking to tent makers. Because if the tent makers understand who they are and their places of assignment and appreciate it, then we would have made reasonable progress. Because if we are sounding like, when you are in church, the pastor is preaching and then somebody is saying, "How I wish that this brother was here in church. This message is for him." If we approach it that way, we are not going to make progress. The point is that for the tent makers, where you are working is your primary place of assignment. Your home parish, your parish where you are posted, is a secondary place. Now, if you understand that, then it will help you. And then, like I said, as we progress, we will talk to the pastors. But our emphasis here today is to help the tent makers understand who they are and their work. If we succeed in this, then we have solved, the problem to a bigger extent. So that is what I'm appealing to us. Let's not worry ourselves here about resident ministers. We will move to their platform. Let's understand what we are saying and then go out from here, pass the message, and then see how to practice it and see whether things will not also change around us in our church. Joel Effiong.
Thank you, sir. Let me join my voice in appreciating the lectures for today. I don't know whether mine is like observation. The first observation is when I heard about evaluation of tent makers. I was beginning to wonder how we are going to do that. If we are bringing them back to parishes to evaluate, or we will go to their place of work to evaluate them, and what we would achieve from that evaluation. That's my observation. The other one is, who is really a tent maker in the Presbyterian Church of Nigeria? How do we define a tent maker? Is it by their training or by the work that they do? Why am I saying that or asking that? Because we know, like the place I am working, which is my primary assignment, University of Calabar, We have other ministers there who by training are not tent makers. But their nature of work, they are doing tent making. Whether we call it by that name or not, how do they participate in this tent making ministries? In quote, the tent making here is in quote by my own definition, no. Because by my own definition in the church, it appears to be more of by the training that the people were trained in a sandwich manner. But if the emphasis is by the place of work, there are so many other persons who were not trained as tent makers, but as at currently now, they are serving as tent makers. How do we bring them to participate in the ministry? Actually, I didn't want to raise any observation and ask any question because I have been given opportunity to share my thoughts tomorrow. But because it has to do with this paper has to do with one of our leaders in the church that I know we need to get the facts from him the most. So who is this really? Who is the tent maker? Because as I'm talking, the chairman of mission board, when he was the minister in charge in the Duke Town, tried to explain something to us, which I shared with him. That for the fact that even if you were a full-time minister trained, but by the time you leave it and go and get another work, whether you call it secondment or what to, you are now a tent maker. And there are many of them in our church. How do we bring them to participate in this ministry so that wherever they are, they also see themselves as people who should, because they are not collecting salaries again from the church, who should use opportunity where they find themselves to grow the church. Presently, I'm leading a team in UNICAD. We want to even see the VC to ask them to give us a land to build a chapel also in the University of Calabar. So that those of us who are working there, it will be an avenue to, when we evangelize, we bring the people there and also train them. So how do we bring these other people also to join? I just know that many professors like in UNN, all those kind of things. So how do we bring them to participate and make them to know that the tent making issue is not about training. It's about what you are doing at that particular time. Thank you, sir.
Reverend Joel. Reverend Joel.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you participate in this training? Or you came in halfway?
I've been participating from the beginning.
You were in the house from the beginning, and you are still asking who is a tent maker. Now, it's okay. We have said who is a tent maker. Maybe maybe you didn't hear us well. I will drop the slides so that you can also look at it. On the first one, I have said that I have a template for evaluation of tent makers. It's not a difficult thing. If you have a template for evaluation of resident ministers, then the one for tent makers is not, because if you define the work of the person, that is what you use to evaluate the person. You are not going to evaluate the person outside what he's called to do. So that one is not a problem at all. Tent makers, if we come to that point where we agree, we have to be evaluated. And then the issue of who is a tent maker, we have defined it. The first person defined it, and then I added, to it. So the issue of training or what you are doing, I don't understand, but we have explained, the thing sufficiently. Thank you, Reverend Steve.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, DC. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Director. I want to also thank the Missions Department for this great package. I have really learned a lot this evening. I want to speak briefly on my experience as a tent maker, because I am gradually being discouraged. I have to be very, very honest. I am gradually being discouraged. I returned to the church in 2017 after a 10 years absence. And when I returned in 2017, in 2018, I was led to giving up a good space for a worship center to a mission station under my parish. I am a school director, a school that is on a very good site, has high student population on a 3-story building, and I gave that space, our hall on the ground floor, as a worship center to our mission station. The reason for me doing that, many churches were coming. It is my church that will take it free of charge. So the reason for me to do this was I wanted to strike a synergy in my ministry, because I was already into tent making before I returned. I also know that at the point I'll go for theological training. So my reason for giving up that space as a worship center is to create that synergy, because I interact with a lot of parents. I interact with staff. I interact with a group that I take very seriously, NYSC core members that come from different parts of the country, posted to us. All these people, as I interact with them, I preach to them, and in most cases, I introduce our church. My major reason is that if I would do this, the resident pastor can take off from where I have stopped, because I do not worship there. I worship in the parish. But over time, that synergy has not worked. The few cases where it worked, I will go beyond preaching to the person and then doing actual follow-up. Now, when I do the preaching, I would, pass on to the mission station, the resident pastor, to carry on, because he's resident. The core members, like I also talked about, live inside the school. The church is in the school. Okay, what I expect is that after introducing our church, the resident pastor or his team would follow up on a Sunday morning. There's nothing wrong in going to knock on their doors to bring them to church. But this over time has not been happening. As I speak, we have about 6 core members that are with us. None is worshiping with us. Last year, at a point, I practically worked myself out, and the 3 core members that were available were fully committed to the church as workers. But now we don't have any. Okay, there's this instance, let me just also talk about it. We are a couple, a family relocated from Congo. They came, within our location, they came to the school to register their children. I introduced our church. The man loved it. I told him that the resident pastor will now come to meet with him. The man that will now pastor him will come to his house. He agreed. What the resident pastor told me was very surprising. He said to me that it will look desperate for him to go to the man's house. So all this, what happens is that the ones that come, he takes. He will not go out to conclude the follow-up that I've started. And like I said, it's becoming a bit discouraging. And I think this forum is one that could guide me. In this instance, what do I do? Because even in the parish, some of the things that have been said here, I've also been over-pressured with work. I am convener of about 4 different committees. With this presentation, I'm thinking about pulling out, because I really want to make a success of my ministry. And the footfall in the school is so high. I really want to pull out, but my worry is this. I do not want to create a sense of competition. I'm the owner of the building. Let the resident personnel begin to see that I'm now too available, to begin to really do the follow-up that is needed to convert these people to becoming part of us. So that is my worry, sir. Thank you.
It's all right. Thank you. The last point I made in my presentation was perseverance. And I mentioned that the reason we need to persevere is that we may have pastors around us who are not interested in what we are doing. I mentioned it. Now we have taken the information. What you need to do for us is after now, please try and connect with the Reverend Ime, the Board of Missions Director. Connect with him. Yes, Director, connect with him. Then I will follow up from there. So, but I said it, if you know your assignment, stay on your assignment. Don't allow anything or anybody to discourage you, because when the day comes for you to give account, you will not tell God that it was because this minister was not doing his part. That is why I didn't do my part. You can't tell that kind of story. I know that there will be challenges. I've been through it. I was in the North for 20 years. I know what I'm talking about. So you cannot make impact in this work if you are not ready, to contend with these challenges. In fact, one of the things you have to deal with as a Christian is discouragement. It comes from different angles, from different people, but you must train your heart ahead of time to overcome discouragement. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. Connect with Reverend Ime. I will follow up from there. Thank you, sir. Reverend
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Reverend Zeleyo, I think the last question is Emelo.
Thank you very much, sir. This discussion is useful, is encouraging. It should also be a platform for correcting a few distortions. To say that tent makers do not know what they want or where they are is unfair. I think we should be careful in the language we use. I chose tent making intentionally, and I've used it effectively.
We said many. We said many. We didn't say everybody.
Yes, sir. Even that. The